All right, getting into a research article, uh, Professors C and Beauregard published a study recently in the International Journal of Offender Therapy and Comparative Criminology 2017, the online first edition, and it is titled Body Disposal, Spatial and Temporal Characteristics in Korean Homicide. So this was conducted in South Korea. So of course we have to consider the cultural, geographical, and other psychological and sociological factors. And we can compare these results with the United States data to see where there are similarities and where there are differences. What they found, for example, they first of all looked at the type of body disposal. For example, direct body disposal is an attempt to conceal the victim's identity, such as removing fingers or teeth. And indirect body disposal is basically concealing the victim without removing identification, basically trying to hide the victim from discovery. Some of the methods that are frequently used include covering the body with items, burying the body or dismembering the body. And we need to look at the situational factors surrounding the actual disposal site and think about transportation issues and the site of the actual killing and so forth. So factors related to body disposal include the type of homicide, and for example, also the transportation or the hiding of the body. For example, expressive homicide perpetrators tend to transport or hide the body, and then instrumental homicide offenders tend to cover the body or just leave the body alone. And the organized offenders more likely to transport the body, and the disorganized offenders more likely to leave the body at the crime scene. And those are things we already discussed with the expressive and instrumental homicide or offender and the organized, disorganized offenders and some of their characteristics. They had a large age range in their study. They had from age 17 to age 77, and a quarter of them were unemployed. 3/4 had a criminal history. And interestingly enough, 10% were diagnosed with some type of mental disorder. And I know a lot of times we think mental disorders would be much higher among this particular population. Some of the cases had 2 or more offenders and participating in the homicide or assisting in the disposal of the victim or both. And often vehicles were used to transport the body. Usually offenders dispose of the body quickly, and most of the murders took place in the evening hours, as did the disposal of the body. And some bodies were dumped in residential areas and others in forested areas as well. And I think we've seen a lot of those cases in the United States that have some similarities. Also, the authors in this study pointed out that some of the locations where bodies were dumped were made by decision-making processes, conscious decision-making, thinking about ways to avoid detection. For example, busy roads, or where they were aware that there was cameras being utilized. And what we want to do that would apply in all cases is to try to look at the mental or cognitive map analysis that we have the idea that offenders are familiar with the site where they dispose of the body, and so that mental or cognitive map that we talk about in the courses. And so we look at also sites where the offender works, lives, or has lived, or engages in some kind of recreational activities. they found that the perpetrators in their study traveled farther than those in the Western studies. And they also found that expressive offenders disposed of the body farther away from the crime scene than the instrumental offenders, which I already alluded to. They found that at least 2 offenders in nearly a third of the cases participated in the murder and assisted in body disposal. And they also found that that they tend to dump in familiar areas, and they recommended that we consider the routine activities theory to analyze and use as a research and investigatory tool when looking at this type of situation where a body is discovered. And so there are some similarities here, and a very useful article in thinking about the disposal of a murdered victim. And this wraps up this video.